When you can't make it to City Hall or the school board meetings, local journalists from Duluth News Tribune will be there to report the facts and get your questions answered. Local news works for you. Stay up to date at duluthnewstribune.com.
Hello, Northlanders. It's Monday, June 26th. I'm Wyatt Buckner, the Duluth News Tribune Minute, presented by Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union.
The average MPECU member saves over $785 a year in better rates and lower fees. And with MPECU, every ATM is your ATM. With their free checking program, you get ATM fee reimbursements at any ATM anywhere in the U.S. Check out Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union's services online at mpecu.com or visit their offices in downtown Duluth, Arrowhead Road, or Miller Trunk Highway.
Now here's a look at today's headlines. After a 3-year hiatus, the Lake Superior and Mississippi Railroad is nearly ready to roll once again. The COVID-19 pandemic and the extensive cleanup of the former U.S. Steel Corporation Superfund site tag-teamed to sideline the excursion rail service these past few years. But the volunteer-run railroad has faced a multitude of challenges in the past decade. Harold Dahls, an engineer and board member of the LS&M, said floodwaters forced damaged bridges to be replaced on the front end, and then the environmental remediation work at the U.S. Steel property caused people to question whether rail service through the area should be restored, or if it simply should be replaced with a non-motorized recreational trail. Ultimately, officials agreed the corridor could accommodate both a restored train line and a bike/pedestrian pathway. About a couple miles of track was temporarily removed to facilitate the cleanup of the U.S. Steel site, but David Bulgren said the line has been replaced, along with a few bridges, and should be ready for traffic shortly. The LS&M doesn't have a date certain for its resumption of service, but is shooting for mid-July. LS&M volunteer Pat Johnson advises people to watch the railroad's website and Facebook page for the latest updates. The Scenic Railroad season usually runs through mid-October. For the third time in a row, St. Luke's Birthing Center has received a perfect score on a national survey from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The Maternity Practices in Infant Nutrition and Care survey is open to all hospitals in the nation with maternity services. While both the national average and Minnesota state average for 2022 was a score of 81, St. Luke's received a perfect score of 100. The survey, conducted every 2 years, asks hospitals questions about postpartum care for mothers and infants, including feeding practices, rooming in, education, and support after discharge. The survey places a high value on breastfeeding and keeping infants in the same room with their mothers. In Minnesota, 55 of 81 eligible hospitals participated in the 2022 survey. Now here's Dan Williamson with a special guest.
Thanks, Wyatt. I'm joined by one of our colleagues, the great Jay Gabler, arts and entertainment reporter for the Duluth News Tribune. And Jay has a feature we'll be able to see in Wednesday's print edition of the Duluth News Tribune, and we can find it online prior at duluthnewstribune.com. Jay, you were telling me this feature is about a farmer from Bayfield that was recently on a reality show that involves survival.
Yes, I spoke with Ann Rosenquist, who along with her partner runs Northwind Organic Farm near Bayfield. That's in the Bayfield Fruit Loop. I learned that phrase reporting this story. The group of farms just outside Bayfield there. So they're known locally, of course, for their, fine food that is produced organically and with no power from the grid. They've got solar power, they've got wind power, they make it happen. Anyway, so enough of an achievement, but she is now gaining even higher profile nationally as a contestant on the History Channel show Alone. That's the show where they take contestants to some very remote area, in this case, far northern Saskatchewan, and they drop each contestant alone on a patch of undeveloped land by themselves, and basically everybody gets a little radio, and when they feel like they've made it as far as they can without food, shelter, whatever help that you would get in civilization, they hit a button and tap out and they get rescued, so they're safe. But the person who is the last one to tap out wins, and wins, in this case, a $500,000 cash prize.
So fascinating. Of course, we see things like this and we wonder, okay, what's the real story? What's the behind the scenes? I imagine there has to be a lot of takeaways. What is something that you found out that you kind of took away from your time with her?
Well, there are survivalists in our midst, Dan. Anne is, as I was mentioning, known as a farmer, which is skill enough. It turns out she has also been, for her entire life, honing outdoor survival skills. First, sort of running around the woods in the North Shore, where she lived in Minnesota as a child with her family, who ran a resort up in Lutsen, and then doing stints in various other places, including now living off the land near Bayfield. But in addition to just sort of general Northwoods savvy, she has learned some really specific skills in terms of how do you make rope? How do you build a shelter? What can you eat? What can't you eat? How do you use moss? How do you, make tea from things that you find in the woods around you if you were to be left alone in the woods, which is a situation most of us try not to find ourselves in, but there's a whole group of people across the country who get into this and go to, workshops together and classes together, and they teach each other, and there are books they read. And so they become experts in outdoor survival. And Anne Rosenquist turns out to be one of these people. And so she, she became a fan of this show, watched it, said she enjoyed it, and knew people who were on it because she's kind of in this like outdoor survival community. And so she sent an email saying, hey, would you consider casting me? And when they responded, she just about fainted.
For our audience out there, what do you hope they take away from a story like this?
It's an inspiring story. Anne is in her 50s and is, not one of the younger contestants on the show. This is a very rigorous kind of experience to be out there completely on your own. You get to pick 10 things, and then that's it, to make your way for what could be up to you. The producers tell people that they should be ready to potentially be alone in the woods for a year, right? So people are that good that they can get dropped in the woods and survive for a year. And even to get at a level where producers would feel like you plausibly could survive alone by yourself with like a bow and arrow and a couple of basic survival materials, to survive in that context for a long period of time, you have to be very, very, very good at being resourceful and making the most of what's available to you. And Anne is that skilled at that level. So it's just cool to think that you can develop those kind of skills, and whatever is you set your mind to, you can really become excellent at it.
Very cool indeed. Again, you can find Jay's article in Wednesday's print edition of the Duluth News Tribune. You can find it online prior as well at duluthnewstribune.com. Jay, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Dan.
Wyatt, back to you.
Thanks, Dan. Now here's a look at your forecast, brought from the News Tribune's Best of the Best Awards.
Weather for the Duluth area today, looking at mostly cloudy skies with some opportunities for smoke in the air. Otherwise, chances of showers and thunder showers in the afternoon. High temperatures in the mid-70s. Clearing out a little bit tonight, and then for Sunday, sunshine makes a return with another slight chance of afternoon thunder showers. High temperatures in the 70s and getting down to the low 50s Tuesday night. I'm Storm Tracker meteorologist Robert Pointer.
Thank you to the Best of the Best Awards for their support. The contest is an annual celebration of the best Northland has to offer when it comes to businesses and organizations that make the Northland a better place to live. Nominations are accepted Monday, June 26th until July 14th as the first part of the competition. Voting will take place August 7th to August 21st. Nominate your favorites at duluthnewstribune.com. Reporting for today's episode was done by Peter Passy, Laura Butterbrodt, and Jay Gabler. Thank you for listening to Duluth News Tribune Minute. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.